Welcome to Everyday Orthodox. I'm Elisa Bielatich Davis. We get together here on Sunday nights to meet everyday Orthodox Christians. And, usually Mike and Simon are in the Chesterton studio, making sure that you can see and hear us on YouTube, Ancient Faith Radio, on the app and the website, and Facebook Live. But tonight is a little different because Matushka Trudy Richter is back in the studio tonight because guess what? Mike is in the hot seat tonight. Mike DeGan is our guest tonight, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm excited to get an opportunity to get to know him a little bit better. So Mike, welcome to the program. How does it feel being on this side of it?
Thank you for having me. It's very surreal. There's levels of surrealism. So the first level of surrealism is finally converting to orthodoxy. Then we've got the next one that's getting a job in ancient faith, and then now we've got being live on ancient faith.
How long were you Orthodox before you got a job on ancient faith at ancient faith?
Let's see. Technically speaking, I would say I was Orthodox for 11 months.
Okay. Oh, it's not that bad, but it is. Yeah, that's a little amazing because that's a quick turnaround. And here you are now on Everyday Orthodox. Welcome. Well, don't worry. As you know very well, not that many people are listening. You don't have to be nervous. It's all right. If you say anything crazy, we'll edit it out later. Don't worry. But at any rate, no, Mike.
Stealth, take it down. Just be like, get rid of that. Get rid of that guy.
Right. No. You're behind the scenes. You can do what you want. You'll be like, oh, is 15 minutes of the show missing? Weird. Can't imagine why. No, but, so guys, usually Mike is producing the show because he's our live show producer here at Ancient Faith Radio. But, of course, tonight he's not. So, Mike, I want to start right at the beginning of your story. I want to know, where were you born?
Oh, man. Right at the beginning, I was born
all the way back.
I was born in this region, Northwest Indiana. I'm a native. Grew up with a single mom. Lived with my grandma for quite some time in a little neighborhood called Miller Beach, Gary, Indiana. We were just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the beach, and and it was like a ton of little empty sand lots around. So I had a real kind of early appreciation for nature and for exploring things. That's kind of stuck with me. And let's see, after a little while, it's like that probably wasn't the safest area in the world. So
isn't that a funny thing? When you're little, you don't notice though, right? Like you're just a kid and this is where you are and this is what the whole world looks like. And then later, years go by and you start looking back and it's like, oh, so I was just allowed to play out there, huh? Because is it very unsafe, or is it just kind of like, how would you say the neighborhood is well, I guess not today, but looking back on how it was then, how was it?
Gary in the 90s, it's funny, I actually, during my undergrad research, I don't think it was strictly speaking related to this, but I did manage to come across in the databases like a paper by an economics student. I think it was like a graduate level paper, actually. And he really dived into the economics of this region, and it really bottomed out in the 90s. And it kind of showed. I mean, it was not like Millard is a nice little beach town, but the surrounding area was just not really doing so hot. And it wasn't the safest area in the world, to be sure. I would kind of rate it as looking back somewhat unsafe. Nothing bothers you as a kid, you're right, but looking back at it, that's probably not, that's a little messed up to be seeing, happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What kind of things would you say that you were seeing that you're hoping your kids someday will not see? Assuming someday.
Just a lot of urban decay aesthetic, and just kind of like taken as normal, and just people really not stepping up and kind of taking care of their community, taking a little bit of a healthy little ounce of pride, in their surroundings and in maintaining their spaces, I would say.
It makes a big difference, right? There are a lot of communities, that are not necessarily affluent communities, but where people feel really involved and really, engaged and responsible for everything and making sure that the schools are good and the streets are clean or whatever. But, a lot of times we don't see that, and then the whole place it can go down pretty quickly. But so it's funny you mentioned it's kind of a beach town. I don't know if this is true in Indiana. I grew up in California, and in at least Northern California, probably Southern California too. The beaches are interesting because people want to live on the beach because the beach is very desirable. Also, the weather can be weirder because you get more storms and you get more trouble. But it's kind of balanced by the fact that apparently people like to do drugs on the beach. You know what I mean? All these towns in California, the houses are expensive and the views are gorgeous and the beach is really nice. But also there are a lot of people kind of living in the corners who are, strung out or have really questionable lifestyles in general, who are maybe going through difficult times. But there's something funny about a beach that kind of, it kind of draws in both extremes. Is that true in Indiana too? I know it's more like dunes there, right? So it's kind of different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get an eclectic mix of people in any kind of beachy environment. But I would say, the cranks. I would say, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a ton of crime in my day. And I think that was because my mom's generation had all of the possible fun that you could have on the beach. So they banned that. We live in a post-fun world when it comes to the beach, at least in Indiana.
So true. My gosh.
No firewood, no beverages of any kind that are in, the wrong containers or, it's very heavily policed these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And, and you're just trying to take care of the beach and make sure there's not broken glass. But there is a way that we just kind of stomp all the fun out of it, isn't there? It would be nice to find a happy medium, I imagine. But so what kind of a kid were you? So you mentioned, you lived with your mom, but a lot of time with your grandmother.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to know about all of you guys. I want to know, what were you like? Right. What was mom like? What was your grandma like? I love grandmothers taking care of their grandsons. I think that's just sort of a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's a neat bond.
Yeah. My grandma was the kind of lady who she was just her. She did not care. She's just kind of out there. She was just Jane. She just got up whenever she felt like getting up, sit in her chair in front of the tube, and usually in a nightgown all day long.
Well, I do find as I get older, I kind of care about things. I mean, not all things. I don't care about people any less, but I do care a little less about how people think about me. Maybe she hit that age where it was just like, yeah, you know what? You'll all have to deal with my nightgown and my late sleeping in and whatever.
Yeah. She she would just kind of throw herself out there, and she had her very, very strict routine of everything happening. Yeah. And
what was the routine like?
The routine is doesn't matter when I get up, but I have to have my 7 a.m. coffee, and I can go back to bed, but I have to have 7 a.m. coffee.
No way, really?
A little bit of coffee. Listen, I'm talking about, she had decaf, but it was such an amount of decaf, it didn't really matter. I mean, I was getting regular amounts of caffeine and somehow sleeping it off for hours.
That's an amazing thing. That's amazing. I've known some people who do that, and it's sort of shocking. But that's funny. So she liked to sleep in, but she still got up at 7 to drink a pot of coffee. And then,
yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. What else did the schedule entail?
A lot of Andy Griffith and MASH viewing.
Nice.
I probably saw the entire anthology of all of that at maybe slightly younger of an age than I should have, but
fair. But that's true of my generation. I'm in your mom's generation, really, right? So our whole generation, we were also watching that way too young. So welcome to the club. You got a little taste of it. But, so
every single episode of at least MASH.
See, I mean, that's great, though, because you get a lot of jokes that a lot of people your age don't get, or like, a lot of references, and you know all about the Korean War. Like, this is wonderful. This is great. What else were you guys doing? Right.
Because it was such a historically accurate show.
It was very historical, that show. They were like, and this is the battle that is happening today. No, not at all. And also, I think in the Korean War, there were a lot of like really charming drunk doctors involved. And, it's actually kind of a terrible image of the military if it were true. But
yeah. It wasn't
sadly
a propaganda piece.
Not exactly, no. But all right. So what else is on the schedule?
What else is on her schedule? Let's see. She would definitely, she'd have a TV dinner at 5 p.m.
Nice.
Every night.
Nice.
Just, got to have your daily serving of like basically plastic. Probably.
Right. Salisbury steak. Come on. They're like, that's not everybody your age even knows what that is. So this is kind of exciting. I'm sort of delighted by this. This is funny. But the TV dinner with the little dessert, and you're not sure what it is, but it's like there's some fruit in it.
Oh, she was too straightforward of a person to have the TV dinner with the dessert. It was the Stofers.
Oh, it was the simple one.
Every night. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very straightforward. And then she'd watch just, the news. Even if it was hard news stories, she didn't care. It was like, we're still gonna tune into the news every night, local, national, all of it. And then something like variety shows, Lawrence Welk or something. Well, that was only on Sunday nights, I guess. But,
right.
See, and I know that reference too.
See, look at that.
70s references for this 70s outfit.
I like it. I like it very much. You're trying to fool our guests into thinking that you were born in the 70s, but or our audience into thinking that. But it's not going to work. I'm going to reveal the fact that you are in fact not actually that old.
I am not actually that old. I am 30.
No.
I turned 30 this year.
Oh, wow, 30. That's a big number. How do you feel about it? Are you nervous about 30? Or are you excited about it?
I don't know. I mean, 30. I'm very relaxed about it now that I've made it. Now I've done, kind of everything once. I've, succeeded at or failed at, most categories of things. So now I know what I'm getting myself into. So,
there you go.
Be a little bit more chill, and I can be like, oh, this is not going to go well, or this is going to go well, or anything in between. But at the end of the day, I'm still here. I've experienced what it's like for it to go either way. So
yeah, I mean, that's actually a pretty good description of adulthood in a sense, right? It's like, I'm not nervous about it. It's not my first time out. I'm more discerning. I don't know. Over the years, a lot of us find that we actually like getting older because of stuff like that, because you can relax a little bit more. You know what's going on. It's kind of good. It's not a bad thing. And I'll tell you, my 30s were really great. My 30s were better than my 20s. So, and then my 40s I just feel like it gets better. So don't worry. Don't worry, Mike. But, all right. So I want to go back to you as a kid then. So
sure.
Your grandmother.
Yeah, I got sidetracked to my grandmother.
Yeah. Well, no, but one of the things that you said about her is that she always did her thing and she wasn't too worried about what other people thought, which is a great characteristic in a grandma. But when you're a young kid and like you want to invite your friends over for a play date, sometimes kids will not do that if they have a grandma who just does her thing regardless. Like, did you run into that problem? Did it kind of inhibit you a little bit as a kid or bother you at all when you were young? When you were in those weird, awkward ages?
Yeah, no, not really too much. I mean, I just kind of accepted everything as a given, didn't really think about or consider how it might be for other people or in other places. Yeah, it was very Zen in that way, like for sure. I wasn't really too interested in a lot of other arrangements of households. I was just like, man, this is pretty cool. And then I'd just be like distracted a bunch by, nature or by different technical things. One time my mom helped me build like a complete, it's like a mock-up of an engine. It's not really an engine, but there's all the different little plastic moving parts. And I'm like, that's so much more interesting than worrying about, what everybody else has got going on.
That's kind of cool.
Unless, of course, they had
it's ideal
that I liked. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, coveting other people's possessions is different, but
basically a requirement of being that young. Yeah.
But it is sort of, in some ways, like the definition of how to be happy is to really be content with the good things that have come your way and not to worry about whether there were other good things that you might have had. So did you not then think a lot about your dad? Like, was your dad in your life? Was he not in your life? And it sort of sounds like it was very easy for you to just be happy with what you had with your mom and with your grandmother.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My dad, yeah, he wasn't really around much. And it's just kind of like, a lot of people are upset or angry on my behalf a lot of the time. But it's like, really, you can't, guys, it's okay. You can't miss what you never had. So I'm not... it's not something that incredibly bothered me, and we hung out more when I got like older, especially in my 20s, and it's just like it's one of those things. Right. It's like sometimes it's hard for people to make things work. It just happens.
I think it's really true that there's a real benefit to having a little mercy and to recognizing okay, we're all people, and some of us. Sometimes there are whole decades where we can't make things work, and that is what it is. But all right, so well, there you go. I just want to commend your mom and your grandmother that you kind of grew up with this attitude of not feeling sorry for yourself and not being angry or frustrated, but instead just sort of enjoying what you had and going out into nature and building fake engines with mom. Like that's a great way to be, Mike. That's an awesome way to be.
You make me sound very well adjusted. I'm not sure if I'm that well adjusted, but for sure.
Is this one of those cases where like it looks like it's a really positive character trait and then you find out, no, it's a trauma response? Like that's because I have some things like that about myself where my friends are like, oh, you're really strong. I'm like, no, I grew up in chaos. So I'm cool with chaos. That's not the same thing as being strong. That's a kind of damage, but I put it to good use. So there we go.
I would say more than anything, a short memory helps in those kinds of situations. Yes. And intentionally or unintentionally, I do not remember things very much at all. So, there you go. That would be my advice to the gentle listener, is to maybe practice some intentional forgetting.
If you're like Dory the fish in Finding Nemo, just so happy. Some days. No memory of any slights. All is well with the world. You know what? It's a beautiful thing. There's a real case to be made for it, Mike. But, okay, so as a kid, did you have like a sibling or cousins or other kids around? Like, were there neighbors that you played with? What was that like?
I didn't have any siblings, and my cousins were kind of in and out, but I did have quite a few close friends. And there was one kid down the street that I would play with a lot, and we'd go on adventures, just kind of in the wooded areas. Like that section of Gary really did not recover from the 1960 recession. So there was just a ton of empty real estate in the surrounding area. You could just kind of go forth. You could pick whatever you wanted to and kind of play in the natural environment. And we would do that. And we, of course, had to have a variety of colorfully painted sci-fi themed toys. Star Wars, Star Trek, all of it, pretty much all of it. And just take those out in the natural environment and then be upset when they break. But such is the thing with toys,
Yes. Indeed. But I mean, way to make lemons out of lemonade again there, Mike. The area was depressed, but that meant that as kids, we had no one telling us to get off this property. We could do what we wanted.
Zero people. I mean,
that's awesome.
We kind of kept to that block, but it was still, there's still not a whole lot around. So it was great. It was like being on, 50-acre lot or something.
That's cool. That's very cool. So you mentioned that you really like technical things. and then that your mom and you had built this model of an engine. Were you the kind of kid who was like taking apart the toaster and going through and like, were you really interested in the mechanics of things, or was it more like interested in computers? What was it that was drawing you?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in technical and mechanical things, but for sure, I never really followed up on a lot of that. I mean, yeah, it took a lot to pique my interest, I would say. So from a young age, really all that could fit the bill were computers of various types. But it took a while, actually, for us to get a computer in the house because I just had a single mom. So, it was like, I think I was about 7 years old when we got our first computer. So I had the upbringing that a lot of older millennials have, actually, where there isn't, a ton of technology in the house and you just kind of have to make do entertaining yourself, however, whatever form that takes.
Which is great, actually. I think it's good for human formation to spend a little time just in the quiet. It's good. But it's interesting, too, because I really think until the internet was pretty good, there weren't a lot of reasons to have a computer. Like mostly it was just because you wanted a computer. Yeah, I mean, if you were working or, word processing a lot, I guess. But otherwise, it's like, oh, this is a really expensive toy to play like lemonade stand on. So it sort of makes sense not to worry about it until then when the internet really gets going and it's like faster connections and go to Amazon or something, then everybody's jumping on. But so it might not have been just you, I would say, in the 90s where it was a little iffy on whether people bothered to have computers, I think. But so you're kind of interested in computers. You didn't have one for a while, but you're kind of interested. Is that what you ended up studying? What did you end up doing?
Oh man, you're jumping way ahead. Yeah,
I know I shouldn't jump ahead. I really shouldn't, but I'm just curious.
Around. Yeah, I mean, we interact with our different parts of our past all the time, right? It's like we don't ever like trace our way through the whole story from beginning to end, linear.
Is there any like philosophy background for you? Because you're philosophical, like you're like that, right? Like that observation right there. You guys, Mike is just producing a live show, right? Like we're not having deep conversations, but he is always coming out with things like that. Well, this is how time is, and this is how we interact with it. And it's like, that is really clever, actually. Where's your humanities degree? What happened?
Well, I mean, I took pretty much every 101 class you could take at community college. So nice. I wanted the whole sampling.
That's so smart.
I knew that I wanted to do computer adjacent stuff, but the classes that really focus on that, even at the gen ed level, are just so rigorous. And so I was like, not avoiding it, at least not completely, procrastinating. I guess I was academically procrastinating.
Postponed it a little and gave instead a good story about how you wanted to be very well-rounded.
Yes, very well-rounded. I mean, my associate degree was actually in just general studies. They were like, your studies are way, way too general to give you an actual degree in something. So,
but I mean, it's the associate's degree, right? General studies kind of makes sense for your first 2 years. I don't know. There are colleges that offer programs where like the first 2 years are just this core humanities thing or just like a really vague program. And then junior and senior year, you go do some serious stuff all in one topic. But it's not a bad thing. It's a well-respected way of education, Mike. It's a good thing. But, okay, so well, let's dial it back then a little bit and move back. So you're a kid, you're running around on the sandlots, but then middle school, high school come, what were you like then? And were you still just like goofing around on the lots or what was going on?
So by that time, we had actually moved to Portage, which is basically just like the next town over if you're going east. Okay. So that was kind of a culture shock for me, actually, because there's a lot of like things that I just kind of took for granted that you see on TV that were not really part of my experience, like going on the school bus. Like that is just something that I had not really had any real world concept of, because, living in Gary, you got to go to private school a lot of the time. I mean, the situation there's definitely better now, but, you know, reminding everyone that this was the 90s. So
it was a different time.
Yeah.
But so you were not like regular public school kid like you were seeing on TV. And then you come over to Portage and it's like suburbs and school buses and
you know, well manicured sort of areas, and you've got your kind of defined area that you can play in, and everybody has to have their own, you know, really well defined slice of space. And you know, it's just not a thing anymore in our communities either to like really be on a first name basis and get to know your neighbors and know what they're pretty much into and what they do all day. Yeah, that's just not really as much of a thing, at least not where we moved to. That might be true of other places, but I mean, I look back on it now and I'm like, really, Miller was an interesting little community. Like everybody pretty much grew up with each other, grew up in the same generations. So everybody of the same generation knew pretty much everyone else and knew their kids and knew, you know, kind of how everyone fits into the social fabric of there. You don't really see the same in Portage. It's kind of like just a very, very, what you would say, typical middle-class suburb is.
It's an interesting point, like the idea of the yards with all these fences that limit you. I grew up out in the country. I never moved to the suburbs as a kid. By the time I found my way to the suburbs, I was an adult. So I never thought about that there are all these fences everywhere and it's all very well defined, and it's really not okay if you go play on that part of the lawn because that's somebody else's part of the lawn, and that's weird. I never thought about that. It is interesting how we limit things and how we limit our kids, and how much, I think in some ways I think about different neighbors I've had and how I've worried that, you know, the kids have to really stay off because this guy really hates it when somebody's on his lawn or messing up his flowers or something. And it is sort of a weird and unfortunate limitation. But I think there's still communities where everybody knows each other and there are communities where we don't. You know, I think most of them we probably don't. I think it's more common not to than it is to know everybody, which is a shame. But all right, we're at the halfway mark. And so as our producer, Mike, you know very well that we have to go to break. But we will be right back with Mike DeGan and more making lemonade out of lemons. We'll be right back.
Each year after Pascha, the Orthodox Church celebrates the holy myrrh bearers, who cared for Jesus' body after he was crucified. But myrrh bearing has a broader definition. It can serve as a metaphor for the practical, incarnate love to which Christ calls his followers. In The Art of Myrrh Bearing, author Elisa Bielatich Davis explores the lives of grace-filled, myrrh-bearing saints in Scripture and throughout the life of the Church, offering questions for reflection in each chapter. By following the lead of compassionate saints, such as Joseph of Arimathea and Olga of Alaska, we can learn to embrace a simple and profound way of life in ever-deepening communion with Christ and with others. You can find this book at store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
Welcome back to Everyday Orthodox. This is Elisa Bielatich Davis, and we're here tonight with Mike DeGan. And, we've been talking about his childhood growing up in Indiana. And I do want to say, we're experimenting with something a little new on the show now, right? We're at the beginning, instead of like rambling on about what the show's about, because most of you have seen the show before or heard it, and you might already know what it's about. But maybe here at the halfway mark, I'll just remind you, right, that we get together on Sunday nights to get to know everyday Orthodox Christians, really to build unity in the church, because we don't know each other. It's such a big country, right? The United States, you throw in Canada and all of North America, like there's so many regions we don't know people in other regions, and we certainly don't necessarily know people in other jurisdictions. So, I just feel like it's nice to get kind of a pan-Orthodox coffee hour going here. And, sometimes at coffee hour, I just like to sit down and ask people questions. And so now I just do it right here on Ancient Faith Radio. So welcome back. And all right, Mike. Okay, so we were talking about you moved to this more suburban space, and now you're on a school bus and stuff. Was that like your mom feeling like she needed to get you out of Gary, or was it just she had a better job and things were going well and she wanted to, move up to a nicer neighborhood? Like, what do you think motivated it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always just kind of not really having those amenities that you do get in the suburbs. I mean, the safety issue was definitely part of it for sure, but I think it was more just so, as I was getting older, not really getting the experience that a lot of other kids had just kind of in their community, normal routine stuff that most of Middle America would take for granted, just don't have access to when you live in.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, that's true in a lot of places, really, right? Like, I think on TV and in general, these, middle-class suburbs are a really good place to raise kids. And we kind of take it for granted that most of America is there. It's like, well, there are a lot of other places that are a little different and maybe not designed for families in the same way. But all right. So what were you like in high school? What'd you like to do? So when you're limited now, you got just your yard, lame, like no more 50,000 acres of whatever you want to do around you. What'd you do for fun?
Still collected various bits of technology, I would say. I went over to friends' houses for sure. And yeah, I mean, I was definitely the nerd of various kinds, the tech nerd, the sci-fi nerd, kind of exploring these universes that various Hollywood writers crafted so that way they could, maximize the amount of merchandise and toys that you buy associated with them. Yeah, and then it was a little stifling too. I mean, you've got kind of a little neighborhood. There was places to walk, but not, I mean, there's not a ton going on in Northwest Indiana, especially in the colder, wintry months. So, I definitely got bored. I'm somebody who just gets bored easily, I would say. I definitely have to explore, how do I want to put it, the fantastical, mythological elements to life. That whole suggestion that, it's more than just our everyday experience, that's one part of the Orthodox tradition that I just find so rich, is that, so many countless stories, countless testimonies of the saints working miracles in like the daily lives, in their daily lives and the daily lives of the people that they helped, that they healed, and that was kind of, but obviously rewinding to this time in my life. So yeah, that's when I first started kind of in the more creative aspect. It wasn't until about the 5th grade, I think I got a handheld, just little camcorder for Christmas. And that is really when I caught I wouldn't say the movie bug, because I've never been one to sit still long enough to watch a ton of movies. I would say I'm more into process and less into product when it comes to that. Yeah.
That's neat, though. That's really neat.
It really is. Yeah.
So what would you take videos of? Like, would you organize people into staged scenes, or was it more just candid, just go around and see what I can film and what it'll look like? And
I would probably say that, it was it would get really old really fast just filming me and my friends. And we didn't even really do a lot of that. It was more of trying to, I'll be charitable and say persuade adult teachers to let me film things, using my fellow students as a cast. I don't want to say con, That's just that
That has such a negative connotation.
It was kind of a con. Let's be honest. There's not a ton of learning happening.
Oh, that's so funny. So you would talk them into hey, can we do a group project that's a movie? Or was it, you were like, we'll do a skit about Abraham Lincoln. It'll be so educational.
All of the above, really.
Gotcha.
I think we first started with a student news program that actually there was there was an educational element to it. I think that he was able to make it so that way every kid that was interested would actually do the elbow grease of putting some research into what they were saying before they just started talking in front of the camera. And actually, he got a grant after I left, that teacher, who I'm still in contact with, very beloved elementary school teacher of mine. And he got the equipment to start doing that as more of a regular feature, just with himself, with other the kids that came after me.
Well, that's neat. See, you started that.
Yeah.
But you started something, right? Oh, and then you went back and helped. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Nice. Very nice. And then, so as you go into middle school and high school, was it still kind of recording things? And when you say you're interested more in process than in the actual outcome, does that refer a lot to things like, you were really interested in lighting and sound and how it works? Or is it more just, it was fun to film things, so I did?
It was fun to film things. It was fun to edit things. It was fun to see how close you can actually get to what you see on TVs and in the theaters. Yeah. And, bearing in mind that this is mid to late 2000s, it really wasn't a whole lot.
Well, I mean, compared to now, right? Cell phones now have these cameras that do amazing things. It wasn't the case at the time, but they seemed really good because they were so much better than what we had 5 years before. So, yeah, the results now, I mean, not to do the boomer kids these days kind of ranting, but you look at the technology that you can even just pick up at Best Buy and pretty much anything that you want to think of. I mean, it's very refined compared to what it was, especially, compared to the resolution and the detail that you're able to pick up in everything. I mean, video, audio, doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, I mean, now they can literally film, and sometimes do film movies on iPhones because they're that clear and they're that, advanced now and that cheap now, which is just completely amazing, totally mind-blowing, really, if you stop and think about it, which we hardly ever do. But okay, so as you're going along, you're making films. This is so cool. I did not know about you. So as you get into high school, that's still going. What are you doing? Oh, what am I doing in high school? Well, I was homeschooled for most of high school. Oh, okay. Why? You moved to the good school district and then you're homeschooled. What happened? So I kind of just as I started, as I got a little older, it was I found myself just it was impossible for me to go to sleep, at a normal hour for people. And, and that turns into multiple different doctor's appointments where everybody's just kind of throwing up their hands and doesn't really know what to do. Turns out later that my body's just really kind of, not to get into the gory details, but it's just really, really hard for my body to just react normally to its environment. So think of allergy tests where the entire panel is just kind of coming back positive, but I'm fine. So, a lot of little gripes like that amounted to just a lot of difficulty functioning day to day on a schedule that's a little bit more rote, a little bit more traditional, a little bit more 9 to 5. And so I really just, I tried, but I really could not fit into that mold of kind of what public school is willing to accommodate. And so that's when my mom made the decision, we're just gonna do some school stuff. The only reason this is a problem is because the school demands that schedule, right? Yes. You have a different schedule. I feel like this is how your grandmother got where she got. Like maybe you've inherited this from her, that she had her own schedule and she knew what it needed to be and she followed it, and it kind of didn't matter if it didn't match other people's schedules. And then here you are with your own your own special schedule that you got to stick to. And it is what it is, right? Maybe you're just built. There's something genetic going on with you guys.
I'm built different. DeGans are
built different.
That's
right.
I'm just going to say. And then
that's right.
You know, don't delve into the what exactly is built differently.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sounds more impressive to just say that. Just
say we're built different.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. But okay. So how did you like being homeschooled? Did you miss being in school, or were you just relieved not to have to worry about the schedule anymore?
A little of both. It was quite the experience to be able to just kind of pursue down the rabbit holes that I was interested in compared to what somebody else was telling me to do. I learned a lot about the educational system, which is that because, you know, it was very kind of self-directed, the way that my ma set it up. Maybe even sometimes a little too self-directed. And there's just things that just completely didn't interest me that I probably wasn't really learning at the same pace as other kids my age. But not only did it work out, but it's like, you know, looking back, it's like really a lot of these high school programs, especially when you get to like the most basic tracks that they kind of fit people into, are just a restatement of everything you learned in middle school, pretty much. Maybe a few new concepts, but there's just a lot of fat there in general. So I wasn't really missing too much academically. And I think after a while of kind of getting over myself and learning to be a little bit more disciplined, I think that I became, well, obviously taking all the 101 classes in community college, I became the most well-rounded, you know.
Right. Very well-rounded.
All of the 101.
All the 101s, all the subjects. That's great. But yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thing when you look at homeschooling. I think you see it more in elementary school, but it's like, okay, so they arrive at school and then there's like 15 minutes of like messing with your backpack. And then there's a circle time. And then there's like 15 minutes of instruction and then it's recess. Wait a minute. And then it's like PE. And you find that it's actually just a really maybe, 90 minutes or 2 hours of really direct instruction. And a lot of the rest of the time is about getting lined up and getting prepared and go wash your hands and go do this and go do that. And so, I imagine, as you're saying, even in high school, that it's a lot of restatement. It's a lot of, there's a lot of fat to trim there. And so I do think that's true. I think, but as long as you didn't feel like you sort of missed out on the socialist part of it, or the part you saw on TV where everybody was standing by their lockers and chit-chatting and stuff, it didn't bother you? You didn't have a locker?
I mean, I would say that kind of stuff has historically bothered me, but really, see, I'm just, again, going back to my tendencies. I'm just somebody who is so easily bored, and it's like, I would probably, I could see myself being fully immersed in the teen drama for about 3 to 6 weeks, and then being like, okay, this is kind of, we've seen this movie too many times.
Right.
It's dumb. It's passé. It's time to move on. And then not being able to, right? Because high school has you for 4 years.
Yep, you're stuck there, and everybody's having all their emotional crises, and you're just stuck with it. That's true. But so your family, you haven't mentioned anything about church. Was your family religious at all? Were they, your mom and your grandma, were they God-fearing women, or were they not focused on it too much?
I would say that, my whole family is not intensely focused on it, but they are all Christians, some of them nominally, some of them a little bit more fervently. But yeah, I mean, I think in their personal practice, they were and are faithful Christians. But in terms of like actual formal institutional going to church, we were not hugely big on that.
Right.
I less so. Like this, like even personal piety doesn't really come naturally to me. Like I fell out and into Christianity multiple times before becoming Orthodox. And That's part of why I appreciate the rigor of orthodoxy, actually, is because I do need that kind of discipline to.
So how were you falling out of Christianity? Was something pushing you out, or were you just bored?
Yeah, well, I mean, just, the challenges of daily life can be kind of very consuming, especially when I didn't really know what was happening with me and my health at the time. And that kind of makes you like ask the deeper sort of existential questions for sure. And we were kind of nominally Episcopalian/Protestant, and with respect to those traditions and what they do contribute, because I've met a lot of people in all of those traditions that are very sweet people, they did not really provide the answers to deeper existential questions that I was looking for, and sort of fell out of that. Kind of came back to it as like I did think that I had like a born again Christian moment in high school. And I did develop a prayer practice that was kind of an island of peace and stability for me. But even then, that's still not a very well-developed outlook on God and will only get you so far.
Well, sure. But when you say, I thought I had a born again experience, do you now doubt it? Do you doubt the sincerity of it?
I don't doubt that it was God at work for sure. But just the implications of that, how Protestants understand that as, sort of like a light switch that you flick, and then you don't have to worry about your salvation or spiritual development in a way where it's like very, very vital to your growth and your own personal regeneration. I think kind of not thing for me.
Yeah, I think that that at least for me, also growing up outside the church, there's this sense that like you have to have an experience like that, and that when you do, everything is different from now on. And it's like that's kind of hard to sustain. And then also there are people with deep faith who never had that experience. So how do we explain those guys? And then, of course, in Orthodoxy, it's like, well, it's really nice if that happened to you. And that was God telling you, like, come to church, let's go. But it is different. You're right. I think we definitely don't see it as like this big seminal necessary moment. So I can see where that's a little different for you now. How did you find your way to Orthodoxy?
So I found my way to Orthodoxy. Basically, it was kind of when it started when I kind of bounced out of engineering school. Like that just did not go well. I mean, this was after community college. After I was like, okay, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to get serious. I'm going to get disciplined about everything. And it turns out that when you try to force yourself into something that you're not ready for, that doesn't usually end too well.
Yeah. Well, and also something that you didn't really love. Like you were postponing those classes, right? Like someone who loves it is like eating it up and wants to take more. And you're like, oh, I'll go to school, but I'll take anything but engineering. That's a bad sign, Mike.
Yeah.
But it's not about that it's hard. It's that it's not a thing that you wanted to do, right? And so then you go to university and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing I hate all the time. I was like, oh, gee, did that not work out? Surprising, right? Like, I'm telling you, Mike, I think you're like a philosophy guy. I think you're a humanities guy.
Well, humanities, sure. Yeah, I don't know about philosophy. That can get tough.
No, philosophy is complex. Maybe history or something, but... Yeah, I could see you really enjoying something like that. That's funny. So you're trying to like fit the square peg into the round hole and force yourself to be an engineer. Didn't work.
Did not work. And that's when I also got really serious about buckling down and figuring out what's wrong, what's going on physically. Before then, because before then it was just like, just power through. And you can't, it doesn't work, 6 or 7 days a week.
Right. Yeah. It works for one little short burst here and there. Also, when you're younger, it works better. And as you get older, your body starts going, no, for real, Mike. Like I've been telling you for 10 years, there's a problem. I need you to handle this. But so what did you end up finding out is wrong with you? If that's not too personal, you don't have to tell me.
Well, no, I don't. It's not that it's too personal. I really don't want to gross out the viewers or make them feel like I'm giving them a bevy of too much information.
Gotcha. So you don't have like a simple term you can just throw out there and be like,
no,
oh yes, I struggle with
something like dysautonomia.
This known.
If people know what that is. So
okay.
Just like a lot of vitamins, a lot of alterations in my routine. A lot of different things, and the results have been very dramatic and very life-changing in a very positive way. I mean, and I do
glory to God. That's great.
I do think God is at work in that too. He was getting me ready to work at the post office and then work at Ancient Faith. So
glory to God. Wait, you worked at the post office and then Ancient Faith? Is that what you just said?
As every young man does,
right? There's a natural career progression. Wait, hold up. What did you do for the post office? Were you a mailman?
I was a clerk. Nothing exciting.
It would be cooler if you were a mailman, but okay.
I know.
All right. All right. So you're a clerk with much better health and a very high vitamin budget. And what happens? I still don't know how you even found Orthodoxy. How'd you hear about it? It's like a secret.
Yeah. I should say that, so when I'm in engineering school and I'm kind of at a low spiritually from everything going on, especially just all the demands I put on myself, right? Not just academically, but extracurricularly. And finally just kind of crashing out of all of it. I realized that, that those deeper existential questions are not going to be answered, unless you have a little bit more mature, nuanced view of God. And it was around the same time that my cousin introduced me to the writings of David Bentley Hart, who I know is kind of a controversial figure within Orthodoxy.
He is, but you know what? I like his writings too. I think they're very good. I think people get worried because he touches universal salvation, which is like a third rail we have to be careful about, right? But yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know a lot of people who found David Bentley Hart first. Interesting. You know what I mean? Like usually people come in other ways. That's cool. So you're reading, like what book did you start with? What were you reading?
I started actually, because I didn't really have the budget back then. So I started with just a lot of his blog posts on First Things.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to go, right? Because the books are really expensive, but a lot of really great authors are working out the topics that they will write in their books in articles along the way. So why not? That's great. Okay, so you're reading David Bentley Hart. And when he's writing, because I know First Things is, there are a lot of Orthodox people involved with it, but it's not specifically Orthodox, right? It's all different kinds of Christian denominations represented. Was he talking a lot about Orthodoxy?
I'm not thinking it was directly Orthodox. Yeah. It was more about a view of a beautiful and infinite God.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me to, what orientation is this guy then?
Right. Where does he worship?
Yeah, where does he fit on the spectrum?
Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. So what did you do when you decided it was time to investigate? What did you do?
Sure. So, I should say that around this time was everyone's life was interrupted by the pandemic, including mine. And that led to services at the Protestant church I was going to at the time, kind of basically going fully online, and they needed somebody behind the camera to make all of that happen for them. And they picked I was inflicted on them.
So you're running the camera for the Protestant church. This does not tell me how you walk into an Orthodox church.
So then I just kind of, I'm reading Hart, I'm reading other Orthodox sources, and I'm just being like, you know what, this is actually much more full of a faith than what I'm getting kind of in my daily experience. And then also too, it's like, not that I have anything against that church, and I love all the people there for sure. But it was just like it was more of a nuanced, realized understanding of God, really, in my mind. And so I was like, let's see where this could possibly take me. So, and it was just kind of, I was wrapping up my time there too. I basically helped them kind of get the equipment that they needed to be able to broadcast on a weekly basis without necessarily having somebody with my level of technical expertise doing it. And so I was like, maybe it's time to explore this quirky kind of at times messy denomination that I have never heard of before,
Right. Well, and so were you headed for like a Russian church or an American church or a Greek church or what?
Well, I mean, I was kind of just interested in being Orthodox. I wasn't too sure about what all of the different...
Right. It's very confusing as an American looking at it. It's like, wait, what are the differences? And they're like, oh, it's not different. But don't go there. Those guys are crazy. And you're like, wait a minute. Are they different or not? What's going on? But where'd you end up?
So I actually ended up at the church I'm at now, actually, Protection of the Virgin Mary, over in Maryville, Indiana, just on a very typical Sunday, which is, what you want. I don't even know if it was the Nativity Fast at that point. This was like in November of 22. And, it's just kind of, you go into an Orthodox church as a Protestant, and what else do you think? It's like, when do we get to sit down? Why does the music sound like that? Why is it, I love those stories of people who immediately engaged with the beauty and the mystery and the drama of the liturgy. But that was just, I needed time to kind of adjust and to see it clearly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, it does.
I'm going there, and my first reaction is, I don't think this is gonna.
This seemed like a good idea on paper, but boy, in person, it's weird.
Yeah, and then after you do that for the 5th week in a row, you realize it's kind of becoming a cliche, and maybe you should. Maybe the reality isn't as difficult as you're making it out to be in your mind.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, we do build up walls, don't we? That's funny. Well, that's really neat, though. So you ended up converting there just under a year ago. And then you were like, well, I work at the post office, but you know what I would rather do is produce live shows on Ancient Faith Radio. That's cool. Do you like the new job?
Oh, no, I love the new job.
It's a cool job, right? And it's also an evening schedule. And I feel like a guy like you or a lady like your grandma might really like that.
I can definitely do. I mean, I'm much better. Oh, so much better about mornings now. I could make mornings work, but
with the right vitamins and the right diet, it's fine. It's just fine. But you know what, Mike, you're not alone. It takes people a long time there are a lot of different kinds of health conditions that are actually controllable once you know what they are and how to deal with them. But, and it's real journey getting there. And then of course a journey getting to the Orthodox Church. But I'm so glad you made both journeys. And I'm so glad you spent some time with us tonight. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. I hope to have another surreal experience sometime.
Well, count on me. I will come up with surreal experiences for you all the time. Watch out, Mike. Watch out. And thank you to our audience also for joining us. Come back next Sunday night. We'll be here to meet another everyday Orthodox Christian. You guys have a good evening.